Hey class, welcome to part two of mobile GIS. Today I want to continue on with what we were discussing last time, specifically the advantages and disadvantages of mobile GIS. But just to reiterate, remember, mobile GIS refers to GIS on mobile devices. Traditionally, we've been talking about web GIS and desktop GIS and things like desktop GIS, but specifically in this class, we're talking about mobile GIS that we can use that basically GIS that we can use on our mobile devices. So, and mobile GIS therefore refers to anything um, that we can take into the field, outside the office, into the field, often therefore handheld units or relatively powerful workstation that may be situated inside of cars, things like that. I also mentioned in the previous class that mobile GIS doesn't always have to be connected to the internet, right? So the vast majority of the material for the class talks about web GIS, but mobile GIS can be connected to the web or not connected to the web, depending on where you are. And that depends on coverage and many other things that we talked about in the previous recording of this class. So in the previous class, we talked about what is mobile GIS and applications for it, and what's good and what's bad, the pros and cons about it, the functionality within inside of these types of things. But we didn't really talk about the advantages and the challenges of using mobile GIS, and that's what I want to talk about today. And also how we can go about identifying our location and what tools are available and the growth of location-based service, something that you guys use probably on a daily basis, and how that is being spurred through mobile GIS types of applications. So one of the things that we hinted at in the last recording was that basically mobile GIS allows for the easy collection of data, and also see data seamlessly integrate between the field collection and the back office, like you saw with the UPS movie, for example, right? So mobile GIS can help replace paper-based workflows, wherein operators would input data collected manually initially, pen and paper, but now they can do it in a digital form through personal digital device, like PDAs, for example, right? And a classic example of this would be your census takers. In the old days, in the census people could knock on your door, ask you some questions, and they would fill out a paper form. This paper form would then be mailed back to the Home Office. The Home Office then would take that paper form, enter it into a digital format, and then process that information. With the web-based GIS or web-based data collection in general, or just mobile GIS. Remember, I should say, I was thinking here, all the census data were being done in cities, but not everywhere will have mobile phone coverage. And one of the beauties of mobile-based GIS is that the device can operate out of network, and when it's connected to the network, upload that information back to the Home Office. So, the idea is that mobile GIS eliminates paper-based workflows and therefore reduces errors and currency of the data. And this is super useful. Many years ago, I used to do a lot of geological mapping, geomorphological mapping. And that was done, I'd be walking out in the field with a paper map, tracing paper, and a notebook, and I'll record things or draw on the tracing paper on top of the map of the certain types of landforms, right? One time I was out in the field and I made a mistake. I didn't realize I made a mistake until I got back to the Home Office, right? And then I realized I had to go back into the field. The problem was my Home Office and the field was a 4-hour drive away. So then I had to get back in the car and drive for another 4 hours, obviously, and collect the data again, right? If I knew I had made a mistake initially straight away using now mobile GIS, I wouldn't have made that mistake, right? Because I could have checked it relatively quickly as soon as I got internet connectivity. But that was in the bygone days, right? But mobile GIS eliminates paper workflows, right? And also it's quite useful. So a lot of times when we're doing geological mapping and things like that, it'd be raining and the paper maps would get wet, for example, right? And therefore smudged and hard to read, and we had to estimate or guesstimate what was happening. Once data is digital, it's easily transferable, and therefore easily updatable and movable. So mobile GIS, by its name, provides more mobility. Users have little need for wires, cables, or power supplies. Mobile GIS devices are relatively rugged and specifically built for these types of things, right? So when you think of mobile devices, you think of your cell phones, right? But to protect your cell phones, you have a case around it, right? So therefore, if you drop it, you don't smash the screen. Mobile GIS devices like the Trimble, for example, here, are designed to be rugged, designed to be dropped, designed to work in harsh conditions or cold temperatures, and therefore doesn't suck the life out of the battery. Because, in demanding industries such as construction, surveying, and GIS, asset management, public safety, military, and things like that, require more rugged devices, so they are not easily broken, right? So the idea is, imagine dropping down the device here down the manhole into the water. If it wasn't waterproof, you lose that information, especially if it hadn't been connected to the internet to transfer information back. So, it's easier to collect data with mobile GIS and more cumbersome types of devices or paper maps, for example. But mobile GIS also provides access to a large body of potential users. Everyone probably watching this recording has a smartphone. Smartphones are widely accepted everywhere, ubiquitous, right? With new mobile GIS, powers in the hand of many workers and organizations. Organizations sort of utilize GIS without investing in hardware, software for new users. They can just deploy applications with as a software as a service, so to speak, software as a service, and therefore collect that information. And it's sort of a photo example of, lots of people will have mobile devices. So potentially everybody have a device that can collect information or edit information in these types of things. So there's a lot of advantages within inside of this. Mobile GIS also provides locational awareness for workers and applications. What I mean by that, locational awareness is telling us where we are. It allows us to navigate from one location to another location. It allows us to communicate to other workers. So instead of having to call somebody saying, where are you? If you're all using a certain application, you can work out where those people are in real time. Like Waze, for example, shows you where the other cars are, right? And or the police can use it to work out, who's the nearest person to the incident, and then send the police officer to that incident more quickly. Or we can use our mobile devices to work out where the nearest store is, or hardware store. So for example, if I'm fixing, hypothetically, I'm in the construction industry, and I'm putting up a new pole, but I run out of nails. Where's the nearest hardware store? I can then deploy one of the trucks to go to the hardware store, pick up the nails, and then come back to the job site, right? So it allows for more effective communication inside of these types of things as well, and so forth. It's versatile, right? Communication. Users can send text messages, voice, photos, videos, or emails via these devices. Of course, you can only send them if you have internet connectivity of some device, right? With Trimble, for example, here, this is called a Trimble Geo. It's a handheld device that utilities will use, or environmental agencies that require mobile data collection or asset management. You also have software designed specifically for these. So, for example, AF Mapper is an app that combines the Trimble device to Esri products, right? So it allows you to seamlessly integrate your GIS software to the device inside of this. If you take a photo, that photo will have a geotag, or you want to show that that something is really happening in real time. You can take a recording of that and post that, and then have that recording timestamp, but also has a location associated with these types of things. So you can communicate with these devices, give greater situational awareness within inside of these things, which is sort of important. The other side is, adding additional media content can increase the value of geographical data. So, for example, if I was building a new skyscraper, I should say, I might want to say, where am I now? And could I see where this skyscraper is going to be? So simple view shed analysis, as I'm walking around, you can therefore visualize what that might look like. Or you might have information you might be walking around and you might have an oil field or a toxic waste site or an oil reservoir or underground aquifer, and you might want to see where that is in relation to the houses nearby, right? We can, again, additional media can be added to the GIS, mobile GIS application to show, greater greater value of where you are and what's beneath you and so forth within inside of here. So, the idea is, mobile GIS increases the value of geographical data. It can be merged or mapped together within inside of this. Mobile GIS enables near real-time information. You sort of saw from the UPS example, how, the UPS fleet or managers at home, the operation managers could work out where their current vehicles are, things like that. And we can use mobile GIS to get up-to-date near real-time traffic information. And that improves the currency of the data. So, for example, yes, I can navigate from A to B, but my navigation from A to B is going to be different in the morning versus the evening due to rush hour or flow of traffic, right? If I get near real-time information on the current traffic condition, I can update my route and therefore plan accordingly in these types of things. This comes out to, sacrificing accuracy to that would be needed if you're doing this manually, right? Because this data is being collected and transmitted in near real time in that sense. But there are challenges with mobile data and with mobile GIS. So, for example, mobile GIS devices have limited resources. As I've already mentioned in the previous recording, there's a limited storage, limited computing power, and limited battery. So, the current iPhones go from 124 to 500 gigabytes, right? But that's maybe not enough storage these days, right? Large data sets, 200 gigabytes, and not uncommon in the GIS field, especially all the data that we installed that we visualize in Google Earth, for example, right? Also, the battery lasts only so long. This is when, so you're aware of your batteries running out on your phone. Imagine you're using your GPS on your phone all the time. Your battery drains quicker, right? So you can only have a limited battery life on these things. So you might need charging stations and things like that with respect to that. Also, there's a bandwidth limit or intermittent network connectivity. But as we said, mobile GIS doesn't always have to be connected to the internet, right? That makes it different. That's why mobile GIS is slightly different to web-based GIS, right? But, while we can take the devices into the field, it can really be difficult to maintain sufficient connectivity in remote locations. This is problematic, especially with, say, wildfires or whatever like that are happening, and that can spread quite quickly in relatively remote areas. So consequently, the work that we can do with mobile GIS is dependent on access to the web. And if we need to transmit information, some information might be held up because we don't have access to the web. This is, often sometimes where you have deaths with wildfires, for example, the wildfire crews don't have up-to-date information on the current extent of the wildfire because they're out of the connectivity ranges and so forth. So it can have serious consequences in what I'm trying to say here. I also said, one of the challenges of mobile GIS is they're relatively small screens and small keyboards, right? Yeah, this is changing with the growth of tablets and things like that, but still limited functionality. Often they don't have a mouse, for example, right? and mobile screens cannot compare with large desktop monitors in terms of size of the presentation. This therefore results in user interfaces and map presentations. Mobile GIS is often simplified, easier to use operations for readability, and therefore feature poor, as we've talked about in the previous one. Think about your iPhone or your Android phone compared to your 34-inch or 32-inch monitor that you might have at home for playing video games on, for example. Or think about typing a text message on your phone versus typing a message using a keyboard on a PC, for example, on a computer. So there are, pros and cons about mobile GIS, but it's widely used for data collection. But one of the key things is how do we identify our location, right? And within inside of these types of things. And that's what I talk about now, is how we can identify a location in different ways. So I just want to briefly cover GPS, cell phone networks, assisted GPS, Wi-Fi, and IP addresses, because each one gives us the ability to geolocate, right? So we can identify our locations based on many different approaches, and each one has their pros and cons, and also the number of devices that one can use which side of this. So a GPS approach is probably the one that you think of the most when you think of mobile GIS, that little blue dot that you see on your mapping applications that you're navigating around with your phone, for example. But these come from sort of global navigation satellite systems, or GPS, or GNSS. There's multiple GPS constellations around there. The US has one, while and then Europeans have their own called Galileo, like we talked about in previous classes. But the accuracy of GPS tends to be around about 5 meters. But barriers such as urban canyons, high-rise buildings, reflection of objects and things like that, or the positions of the satellites and how many satellites you can sort of see, will impact those types of things. But yet GPS is one way of defining location. And we talk about how we can define location using GPS in previous classes. Another way of delineating our location, not relying on a GPS itself, therefore, is the cellular network. So we can triangulate ourselves using triangulation technology methods through the cell phone network. Each cell phone tower has a unique location associated with that. Through one or two, from 2 cell phone towers, we have 2 at one intersection point. We have 3 cell phone towers. We have a more precise triangulation of where we are. But the triangulation of how accurate this is depends on how close the cell phones are together. Cell phone towers are together. If cell phone towers are close together, you have smaller triangulations, therefore higher accuracy. But in larger, more rural areas, cell phone towers will be more spread out. So therefore, the overlap between different cell phone towers will be larger. So the accuracy of cell phones is high in cities, but low in rural areas. So the accuracy can be improved by considering time it takes a signal from the tower to reach your phone. But in general, cell phone accuracy is around 100 meters. Yes, it might not matter in certain applications, but if you want precise locational information, GPS is going to give you that better than your cell phone network, right? In that sense. There's also a way of locating ourselves using assisted GPS, which is a combination of both cell phone and GPS itself, right? So it combines GPS and cellular networks together to determine our location. This is the analogy would be if you have a sat nav in your car. When you first start your car, you have to wait for a little while for your GPS signal to be picked up, right? Especially if you're inside a parked garage or whatever like that, right? The idea of assisted GPS would be that first you are located based on the cell phone towers. Cell phone towers then help narrow down which GPS satellites to look at. And then from that, you therefore get a better sense. It's quicker to get a fix on your current location within inside of here. You'll see assisted GPS on emergency calling in rural areas, for example. You might 911 calls, for example, can be assisted through this technology. So assisted GPS improves the startup performance, time for the first fix of the GPS based on the positioning of this, and is actually accelerated by the United States Federal Communication Committee's 911 requirement, which is what I was sort of hinting at here. So you use cell towers to get a quick fix, to know where we are, and then the GPS then piggybacks off that. So we can work out our location based on cell phones, GPS, combination of GPS and cell phones. But sometimes you might not be outside, right? So indoor navigation is a problem, right? So if we want to understand indoor navigation or use types of things like this, we might want to use Wi-Fi based approach to understand where we are. So there are databases like Skyhook, for example, has over 250 million Wi-Fi locations, so your IP addresses for each Wi-Fi router, and their locations. These can be derived, for example, when Google Street View is driving around, it's constantly scanning for different Wi-Fi routers, remembers those Wi-Fi routers names, and therefore geolocate them based on where the cars have been located, or other people, or other ways of doing these types of things. So Wi-Fi based approach uses a database of location of wireless hotspots to determine your location. That's, and it's accurate up to 100 meters. And the distance of the Wi-Fi, which is roughly the distance of a Wi-Fi signal, right? As I mentioned in the previous recording and in the previous class. But it does require that the hotspots have been updated in the database and requires some type of internet connectivity with respect to this type of thing. But if we're doing indoor navigation, Wi-Fi is one of the ways of connecting indoor. Because remember, if you're indoor, you're not going to get a GPS signal because you can't see the sky above you. The most cost resolution of defining our location would be your IP address. So each, so your internet protocol address, your unique address to, this is assigned by your internet service provider. So for example, if I went to what'smyipaddress.com, it would say that I'm roughly in this area, right? Again, it defines roughly our location. So you remember IP is a unique identifier to a hardware connected to the internet, computers, printers, faxes, you name it. Anything connected to the internet has its own IP address, and which we talked about in the Web Fundamentals class a couple of weeks ago. So we can define location in these types of things. Once we can define location, there's also tools. What are the tools that we can use for mobile GIS? And these are what I want to talk about now. So mobile phones, laptops, and now more common would be the tablets that are constantly growing around us. Mobile phones are an excellent introductory platform for mobile GIS. They have built-in GPS since Apple's iPhone back in the mid 2000s. Phones are now sort of ubiquitous with GPS devices. They have compasses telling you which way you're looking, for example, which is awesome for augmented reality, which we talked about in the previous last week in class. We can record voice and take photos with the camera. We can text, things like this. So you have a lot of input devices that traditional, more expensive mobile GIS data tools like the Trimble devices would have, for example. And they require most of the functions that field workers require. That require to do GPS types of work associated with that. Laptops are another mobile GIS. Remember, mobile GIS is that ability to take things from the office into the field. Laptops, yes, they aren't as convenient to take into the field of a smartphone, right? But, so they're less portable than other mobile devices, but they still use mobile GIS. So, for example, police cars or ambulances and things like that will have you can have a laptop inside of them. So they can work out where all the police officers are, or, we could easily type in the ticket for you if you've been pulled over. Often field workers travel with a laptop in the car and put input the data after a site visit. So building surveyors or people checking that the building work's being done correctly, for example. But the advantages, they're larger than your phones, larger screens, easier to input data because they have the keyboards, probably more powerful than your phone as well, right? But they're not as portable as your mobile devices. Now, a compromise between the two would be something with a larger screen and more power, which are your tablets. Now tablets have become a major platform in the GIS and mobile GIS market. They're more portable than laptops. It's smaller, but they're more powerful and usable on the phone, so they have a larger screen size and therefore it's easier to type with these types of things, right? You can also buy external keyboards for them, so forth, with inside of this. You can also link, again, like your cell phone, you can also have cellular data plans with these things. So if you need internet connectivity, you can have those types of things. And then not only so you have devices, your cell phones, your tablets, your laptops, we also have different tools. We can have tools that are either browser-based or app-based. So when we're developing mobile GIS applications, we have to choose, do we want a specific application that will work in a browser, like YouTube, Google Maps, for example? The nice thing about these types of things is that browser, anything, something developed in the for a browser, the web page, i.e., can be work on all platforms, Android, app, or OS, Android operating system, Apple operating systems, you name it, they can work on the same platform. Downside, you need internet connectivity. And again, one of the problems with internet connectivity, you may not always have internet connectivity, right? Especially in more rural areas like upstate New York and the Adirondacks, as we mentioned in the previous class. So this is one way of connecting. The other alternative are bespoke apps. So apps like Google Maps, for example, are one of these. So instead of a browser, we can use an app. So we can develop apps for our native applications, dedicated apps for a specific thing that needs to be first installed on your mobile device. These options means that the apps are designed for specific functionality, so that it increases interactivity and potentially capability in here of the program. Downside of apps is that they are operating specific, so you have to develop an app for both. If you imagine you had both Android and Apple users, if you develop an app that will work on Android, and that will work on both, and an app that will work on your Mac operating system. Also, you have to get into the Google Web Store and the Apple Web Store, for example, for downloading, for example. And therefore it's harder to develop them for multiple platforms inside of these, So unlike HTML5, unlike HTML, or the browser type of things, apps don't have to have the same sort of standards operating system. And if operating systems keep changing, you have to keep updating them, unlike web pages. But apps are everywhere. There's a lot of mobile GIS apps out there. And often these apps provide many of the same types of functionality or one of many functionalities, right? So apps can help with view and navigating existing geographical layers. We can view attributes, we can search for things, and capture and store geographical data. And I just want to go through a few examples of these in the next few slides. So existing apps, Google Maps allows us to view information as we navigate. It allows us to search for information. Where's the nearest Starbucks? Or, gives us, where is the nearest Apple store if I wanted a new iPhone, for example, is what I'm showing you in this one here. And locations associated with these types of things. So we can search for things within inside of here. We can add different layers of information with inside of here. We can, you can use Google Earth, get the Google Earth app on your mobile device, and you can do a tour of, say, Taj Mahal, see all other people have posted the photos. So again, it's sort of a mashup type of relationship. We have look at the views from different locations. So down to what does Buffalo look like from a certain location, or things from the 3D city models, right? So we can view information, view different layers of information within inside of these maps. We can also download and store maps offline. One of my favorite apps in mobile GIS is the one called maps.me. I think it's a great, and what I like about it is I can download an area where I'm going to go and visit, and it stores that information on my device. It doesn't download the whole of the world, just the area I'm interested in, because remember, we're limited on how much storage we have on our personal devices, right? So I quite like this for international travel. I don't have to have an international data plan, so I'm saving a couple of $10, $12 a day while traveling. But also what's interesting about maps.me is that you can edit these maps offline. And then once you get internet connectivity again, upload edits from that map back up to the maps.me website, which therefore feeds into, that can also feed into editing the base map of this, which is OpenStreetMap. So you can edit OSM, OpenStreetMap, within the app. And then once you have internet activity, you can then post those edits to OpenStreetMap. It's actually being used to map refugee camps around Syria, for example, or countries around Syria, like in Turkey and places like that. We can also, software companies, especially GIS companies, have started jumping into this realm. So ArcGIS Survey, for example, or Survey 123, is an example of using GIS software. Is an example of using apps to collect information around us. So we can create, share, and analyze surveys in 3 easy steps, as we would talk about. And I just want to show you how this works. So let me just make, I'm going to share the screen again to make sure that I'm sharing sound. I go back to here and then open the link.
Field collection is a critical part of GIS for many organizations, and smartphones and tablets make it easier than ever to turn a field observation into a point on a map. But putting those points on a map is often the easy part. For many GIS users, it's the other data that's harder to make sense of. For our data to provide the answers we need, we first have to ask the questions that make our data relevant, objective, and accurate. And now, ArcGIS users have a new way to ask the questions. Presenting Survey 123 for ArcGIS, the best way to collect high-quality form-based data in the field and seamlessly add it to your GIS. Survey 123 allows you to create a data collection workflow using smart forms. You decide which questions to ask and which answers are acceptable. Survey 123 makes it easy to create these questionnaires in a spreadsheet by keeping it as simple or specific as you need it to be. You can tailor these smart forms to meet the needs of your organization and to leverage the knowledge and skills of your workforce. Survey 123 runs natively on both mobile and desktop OSs, so you can collect data on your current hardware. Users can upload their data on the fly, where it's immediately available back at the office for analysis, feedback, and response, or you can work offline and sync it to the database later. Other smartform apps stop here, leaving you with data that needs to be converted and imported into your GIS. That means extra time, more effort, and a greater risk of data errors. But for Survey 123, it's just the beginning. Your new data seamlessly integrates into ArcGIS so you can monitor the results of your surveys in real time or perform analysis as data streams into your GIS. That's what mobile data collection should be all about. Asking questions, getting the facts, and making decisions. With ArcGIS, bringing your data from the field to your geographic information system is as easy as Survey 123.
That's just one example of how one can design apps, but also generic apps to collect data. And Esri, of course, being one of the leaders in GIS, not surprisingly, also jumping onto the mobile GIS bandwagon as well, right? In that sense. So there's lots of tools out there for collecting that. But also leading to a rise in a whole new area of service called location-based services. And that's what I want to spend the remaining of today's class, or this recording on, really. So location-based services refers to information services that integrate our location on a mobile device and provides added value to the user. So location-based services answer questions such as where is the nearest X, or how do I get there? It could be where is my nearest Starbucks, or where is my nearest, McDonald's, or things like that. So, some of the most classic functions used in location-based services include wayfinding, navigation, querying POIs or points of interest. So that would be, your Yelp restaurant reviews, Yelp restaurants in an area, find my phone applications or locating types of people, receiving alerts based on where you're located, emergency alerts, or just mobile advertising within inside these types of things. But location-based services, it's all about you and where you are, where are you now? Or, if you're standing on this sign, you are here. right? And then what is around you is what we're trying to get at here. There's lots of location-based services. There's Yelp, again, going back to the example, um, querying POIs, right? That would be an example of Yelp. So where I'm here, where are the nearest restaurants, and I can read the reviews of those types of things. Or I might have, I'm in this location, what hikes can I go on? That would be an example of all trails. And then, of course, I can use all trails also, not only for knowing where is something near me, but where am I and how do I follow that trail? Of course, one of the disadvantages of mobile GIS is the battery runs out. So you don't want to always just rely on all trails for navigation unless you have a battery charger. It's still be quite useful occasionally to have a map and a compass, especially if you're going hiking up in the high peaks there in the Adirondacks. Often people's phone batteries die and mountain rescue have to come, or the rangers have to come and rescue you because of that. The idea is location-based service gives us that ability where we are and information around those locations. So location-based services is one thing. Another thing related to location-based services is this idea of geofencing. So geofencing places is putting a fence or virtual perimeter or buffers around real-world geographical features, and you know, and it can be, geofencing can be used to notify users when you're entering or leaving a certain area. So, or they can be associated with applications such as car theft prevention. So, where's my car now? Or where's my current location? Or, you're now entering a school zone, or whatever, or advertising. Geofencing is often used in e-scooters, for example, in Washington, D.C. There are geofences about where e-scooters can't go. E-scooters have a GPS inside them, so they know where they are. So if they get stolen, one can retrieve them. But they also say once you become into a certain area, you can't go any further. It just stops working. George Mason University campus, for example, had a ban on e-scooters. Had a ban. I don't know if it still does. Right. Geofencing is critical in telematics. It allows users to draw zones around places of work, customer sites, and things like that, and then trigger messages when you walk into those things. So in Waze, for example, when you stop at a traffic light or someone stop at a car, you might get a message about a Starbucks being nearby. That's because you inside of a geofenced area that was being identified as a Starbucks type of thing. You can also use this in marketing. So, for example, Burger King had a very successful campaign where they geofenced all McDonald's restaurants. And if you had the Burger King app, if you went near a McDonald's, it would say, don't order McDonald's, come to Burger King, I'll give you a free Whopper meal or Whopper sandwich, whatever it's called, right? So you could use that as for marketing as well. So geofencing is used a lot also because of location-based services, and also because of mobile GIS, knowing where we are in our locations, right? But there's sort of a distinction between geofencing and other location-based services. Traditional location-based services often identify points of interest that you are near to the user. A geofence is really the opposite, right? Geofence is a category of location-based services that is used to identify users who are near a point of interest. So it's basically flipping the meaning of the two, but it's being used in marketing, communication, also drones, where you can and can't you fly drones, for example, commercial airspace, for example, we will put geofences around them. It can potentially be used for anything to stop navigation. But there are examples of using location-based services for more than just identifying where we are. So geofence, putting we know in this area, right? And those geofences might be linked to things like data roaming. If you walk on the Niagara River, for example, on the American side, you might eventually sometimes get roaming charges because it knows that you're within Canadian cell phone area, for example, right? So mobile phone carriers frequently implement location-based services and geofencing to inform users that you're traveling into a new service area. Therefore, you might get charged according to that type of thing. So that's one thing. Weather applications, getting weather alerts, again, is a location-based service. It provides locational-based updates regarding climate weather, such as hurricanes, floods, earthquakes, tornadoes, and things like you might see those push things being sent to your phone, or the test messages being sent to your phone. Some public advisories being sent, like those types of things. Or if you're just using the Weather Channel as an app on your phone, it'll pop up, a weather alert associated with that. And are you safe in those types of things? Waze is a very interesting example of location-based services because it's an interesting chaotic navigation app that integrates some social features, right? In the sense that it's not just about getting from A to B. You can report, traffic traps, speed traps, traffic accidents, and things like that. So there's a social element as well as just the routing from A to B. Users can therefore adjust their routes, or Waze will suggest algorithms, suggest alternative routes based on what users are putting into these types of things to avoid traffic jams and things like that. But again, this is being enabled through mobile GIS types of applications, enabled through GPS and so forth. And the idea of geofencing, coming back to this, many companies are now offering coupons based on if you're near a store, for example, right? So instead of find my nearest X, the geofencing starts flipping the opposite way around, as I just mentioned a few slides ago. So, for example, as you approach a Starbucks, it might send you a message saying, "Hey, come and get a coffee. You receive some 50 cents or 50p off," those types of things, right? Or, as I say, Burger King utilizes geofencing to pull people away from McDonald's stores, for example. So there's lots of services and companies now evolving to utilize location-based services and geofencing to promote or sell products or to attract customers into those locations. And it allows for more bespoke advertising as well, rather than mass marketing inside of these types of things. Location-based advertising is, very compelling to advertisers, because they can target small, very interested markets. So, for example, if you have a Starbucks app, Burger King app, Burger King might be therefore knows your profiles, right? And therefore they can say, "Oh, he normally buys a Big Mac this time of day. Maybe he's hungry this time of day, and he's now within a certain range of a certain Burger King restaurant." And therefore they could send you a message saying, "Come and get a Big Mac and receive some discount off," these types of things. So, that combination of mobile GIS and within inside this location-based services has the potential for many new applications for promoting new services or goods and things like that. So to wrap up, these two last recordings talk about what is mobile GIS. It's really the idea of running GIS on mobile platforms, something that you can take out into the field. There are many advantages and limitations of mobile GIS. It allows for mobility, allows for lots of data capture, especially like using cell phones, where everyone has a cell phone, so it's becoming ubiquitous. You have near real-time data collection, especially if you're connected to the internet, right? So you can easily send information back and forth over the internet. But again, there are some limitations associated with mobile GIS. For example, you can only get updated information if you are connected to the network, or if your battery of your device has not been drawn out, and types of things. Mobile GIS has been enabled through our ability to identify location. We can identify location through GPS, through Wi-Fi, through cell towers, through IP addresses. There's many different ways of identifying where we are located. There are a lot of tools out there for mobile GIS. That includes our phones, our laptops, but of course, phones, small screens, laptops, heavy, tablets, sort of that intermediate ground inside of here. We can farm things out through web pages or through the web, or we can use dedicated apps like Yelp, for example, has a dedicated app, or Survey 123 from ArcGIS. But mobile GIS is really allowing the growth of location-based services. So it allows us to identify where the nearest thing, or identify industry, or geofencing. The flip of that allows us not only where it allows users to identify users who are close to a certain object or a certain store or things like that. but mobile GIS is a growing area of research, collecting more and more in information associated with the world around us. I'm going to stop my share here and stop recording.